Marshall Islands. Republic of the Marshall Islands. Major city, Majuro. Editor's note. This chapter was adapted from the Department of State Post Report 2001 for Marshall Islands. Supplemental material has been added to increase coverage of minor cities, facts have been updated, and some material has been condensed. Readers are encouraged to visit the Department of State's website at travel.state.gov for the most recent information available on travel to this country. Introduction. Comprising over 1,000 flat coral islands of white sand beaches and turquoise lagoons, the Marshall Islands beckon visitors with all the promise of a tropical paradise. There are pristine diving and lush tropical greenery, and the Marshallese people retain many of their precolonial crafts and traditions, especially on the outer islands. You can still watch outrigger canoes zipping around lagoons, though these days you are as likely as not to find a VCR in that little grass shack and Coke replacing coconut milk as the drink of choice of many islanders. Marshallese society has always been stratified, and despite increasing Westernization and the introduction of a moneyed economy, social status still comes as much from one's kinship as it is from one's own achievements. Chiefs continue to wield a great deal of authority over land ownership and usage. In travels between the islands, early inhabitants learned to read the patterns of the waves and the positions of the stars, and they made stick charts to record and pass on their observations to less experienced navigators. By tying flat strips of wood together in imitation of the wave patterns and attaching cowrie shells to the sticks to represent particular islands and atolls, the experienced navigator could memorize the patterns for when he was out at sea. The charts were not actually taken on the journeys. The first Micronesian navigators arrived in the Marshall Islands sometime between 500 and 2000 BC. Little is known of their origin nor culture. In 1494 Micronesia was ceded to Spain. The Marshall Islands, however, were off the main trade routes and consequently received little attention from early European explorers. In 1525, Alonso de Salazar of Spain became the first European to sight the islands, but Spain did nothing to colonize them. After another 200 years devoid of Europeans, the islands received a visit from English Captain John Marshall, from whom they later took their name, in 1788. Traders and whalers began to visit the islands en masse in the early 1800s, until encounters with the friendly native Marshallese began to turn sour. Ship after ship putting into port at various atolls in the Marshalls quickly weighed anchor after the death of their captain or crew members. Germany annexed the Marshalls in 1885 but did not place government officials on the islands until 1906, leaving island affairs to a group of powerful German trading companies. Japan took over in 1914 and colonized the Marshalls extensively. In 1973 the Marshall Islands withdrew from the Congress of Micronesia, seeking political independence. In 1979, the Marshalls Constitution became effective. The flip side to the paradise picture is that many of the Marshallese still struggle with the effects of 20th century's technology. Two atolls, the Bikini Atoll in particular, served as testing sites for atomic bombs through 1958. And yet, despite these hardships, you will find the Marshallese exceptionally welcoming and their culture and identity alive and well. Major city. Majuro. Majuro is the political and economic center of the Marshall Islands. The inhabited islands along the southern side of Majuro Atoll have been joined over time by landfill and a bridge to form a 30-mile road from Rita, on the extreme eastern end, to Laura, at the western end. Both villages were so codenamed by U.S. forces in World War II after favorite pinups Rita Hayworth and Lauren Bacall. The main downtown business and shopping area is located in Rita and extends 4 miles to the southeast corner of the atoll, home of a second shopping center, the Capitol Building, and government offices. The downtown area includes the islands of Joret, Aliga, and Delap, Dud. Newcomers cannot identify where one area ends and another begins, but it is not necessary for finding one's way. A single paved main street parallels the lagoon, and a smaller unimproved road follows the ocean side as far as the government office area. Schools, offices, shops, Restaurants, hotels, and the hospital are along the street. No longer a village, Majuro is a small town compact, offering far more Western amenities than one might expect in the middle of the Pacific, a place where people know one another and you cannot get lost. The Dud area contains approximately 12,000 to 15,000 people living in mostly crowded housing, many without water and sewer facilities. Since land is in short supply and controlled by each clan, graves of family members occupy central place in front of many dwellings. Marshallese homes typically have no furniture, only pandanus sleeping mats, which are rolled out at night. Cooking facilities, kerosene cookers, or pit fires are often outside and may be shared by more than one family. The lagoon and ocean have traditionally been used as toilet facilities. Such use continues, despite the population increase, and causes health problems at the Rita end of the lagoon. The population density lessens as you drive westward, and the environment becomes more suburban. The housing standard improves, green grass, coconut, and breadfruit trees are abundant. The area has a few neighborhood shops, selling individual cigarettes, some canned foods, soft drinks, and snack food. Utilities. Electrical current is 110 V, 60 cycles. The power is stable, although fluctuations are frequent and surge protectors are a good idea for any sensitive electronic equipment. Announced outages of a few hours each are necessary at times to complete system maintenance. Food. Majuro retail stores offer a surprising variety of consumer goods despite the country's remote location. The two largest grocery stores in Majuro are Robert Reimer's Enterprises and Gibson's. Both stock a large variety of American grocery products, including packaged and canned goods, frozen meats, vegetables, ice cream, bread, fresh vegetables, and a good supply of dairy products. These two stores have a good selection of household items as well as clothing, sewing notions, cards, toys, non-prescription drugstore items, and office supplies. A limited supply of baby food and formula is available, as are disposable diapers. Most goods are imported from California, New Zealand, and Australia. Food products look a little different. For example, the cuts of meat available are not what we are accustomed to, but most people agree that you can find almost anything you need. You have to plan ahead and buy when you see something that you think you may want to use in the future and freeze it if it's perishable. Depending on the item, most food is priced higher than in the U.S. Fresh vegetables are very expensive and not always of good quality. Imported rice is a staple in the Marshallese diet. Imported chicken is the major meat. Some fish is available, but most local families who catch fish only take enough to feed their own families. Until recently, the only locally grown fruits and vegetables were coconut, pandanus, papaya, bananas, and breadfruit. Recently the Taiwan government started a farm in Laura, which has produced wonderful vegetables such as tomatoes, corn, and peppers, which can be purchased in the local grocery stores. Clothing. Majuro's tropical climate is best appreciated while wearing cotton. Synthetics may be comfortable in air conditioning, but outside the office, they are uncomfortable in the heat and humidity. Local stores offer few cotton garments and little of U.S. style and quality, except for a vast array of Majuro t-shirts, which are popular with local and visitors alike. Men, the local dress code is basic. Around town, men wear t-shirts or Hawaiian aloha shirts, open-neck sports shirts usually worn untucked, long pants, shorts are acceptable in certain situations, and sandals, athletic shoes or, occasionally, conventional shoes. Women, local women wear long muumuus with short sleeves and rubber sandals. Few women wear American-style clothes, pants and shorts are not usually worn. Women's thighs and shoulders should be covered. Marshallese women swim in their muumuus, which are made of silky polyester that dries quickly. Most women wear skirts and blouses or dresses. Either is also suitable for evening wear. Because of the climate, stockings are not worn and sandals, casual and dressy, are the norm. Fancy or revealing cocktail dresses are out of place in Majuro. Long skirts and dresses are fine for evening wear. Foreign women normally wear clothing similar to what they wear at home during hot weather, with the exception that women do not wear shorts, except those at least knee-length, in public. Foreign women may wear pants to go to town or to an evening function. Women may wear a bathing suit into the water, but should wear a skirt or wrap around their lower torso while on the beach. Children, several of the private schools in Majuro require uniforms, which are locally made and available at modest cost. Otherwise, children wear t-shirts, shorts, rubber sandals, known as zoris, and bathing suits. Athletic shoes are occasionally worn and are best ordered from the U.S. Boys wear long pants to church and girls wear dresses. Dress clothes are not needed. Climbing coconut trees, playing on coral sand and rocks, swimming, clothed Marshallese style, and banana and coconut stains take their toll on children's clothes. Supplies and services. Majuro has two hardware stores, Ace and True Value, which have lately been well supplied with basic items. Fishing tackles and rods are expensive. Fishermen should bring their own and buy lures here. Most items will be more expensive, so if you anticipate needing something and have the room to ship it, then do so. You will save money in the long run. The Napa Auto Parts store has an uneven inventory but may have what you need or will order it. Tires may be ordered and shipped in. A few basic services are available in Majuro. There are a few beauty shops providing haircuts and simple styling. Repair services for appliances and electronics are limited. There is one dry cleaner. Majuro has only a few reputable car repair shops, so be sure to ask for recommendations when you arrive as to where the best service can be obtained. Religious activities. The first Christian missionaries arrived in the Marshall Islands in 1857, and Christian religions continue to play an important part in Marshallese life. Churches provide a particularly important social setting, with gatherings throughout the week. A single village may have competing churches that create tension within the community over membership and status. The Bible, translated into Marshallese, is used as a reading textbook, and many children have Old Testament names. Many religious denominations still support missionaries in Majuro, Ebite, and the Outer Islands. Several small, private religious elementary and high schools exist throughout the Marshall Islands. Denominations represented include Unified Church of Christ, Protestant, Roman Catholic, Assembly of God, Seventh-day Adventist, Independent Baptist, Mormon, Jehovah's Witnesses, Baha'i, and the Salvation Army program. The Unified Church of Christ and the Assembly of God churches have a theological college in Majuro. In Majuro, Assumption Roman Catholic Church and the Assembly of God Church offer weekly services in English. Other services are in Marshallese, although most of the missionaries in every denomination are English-speaking. Education. The two private schools in Majuro most used by foreigners are the Majuro Cooperative School and Assumption Catholic School. Both schools use American textbooks and follow an American curriculum. Homeschooling is always an option and is used by many Americans living in Majuro. Recreation and social life. Recreation in Majuro is almost entirely of an aquatic nature. Fishing is popular with Marshallese and foreigners alike. Small bow tree fishing, throw netting, and surf casting are popular. Larger outboard boats are available for deep-sea fishing for marlin, tuna, and other game fish that abound in the Marshall Islands. Although no commercial charter boats are available, you can arrange for private charter or to be included in a day's fishing trip on a small boat. The warm, clear waters are home to vast communities of fish, coral formations, and abundant tropical marine life, all easily accessible to snorkelers and divers. Sailing, windsurfing, swimming, boogie boarding, occasionally surfing, and picnicking at the beach are popular activities. The local dive shops fill air tanks, rent equipment, and offer scuba lessons, and have a small inventory of diving gear for sale. Majuro has one large indoor athletic facility, which is used for sporting events and large assemblies. There are many outdoor basketball courts, 2 public tennis courts, a baseball field, and one bowling alley. Foreigners enjoy walking, bike riding, and jogging, but because of the narrow roads this can be dangerous. Rust is a problem with bicycles, and you should bring locks and patch kits for making repairs. Evening entertainment in Majuro is limited. There are several good restaurants to go for dinner, several bars that offer live music are open at night, and there is one movie theater with 3 screens. Marshallese live simply and entertain rarely, except for singular events, the most common being a canoe, or child's first birthday celebration. These are socially important events to which large numbers of people are invited. Food preparation for a canoe takes several days. Marshallese women usually do not accompany their husbands to events, public or private, but that situation is changing slowly. It is awkward for a Marshallese to decline an invitation, so you never can be sure if an invited guest will attend. An RSVP is not usually understood. Most of the foreign social activity consists of friends meeting at homes or at a restaurant. Many foreigners live in modest housing and have limited ability to entertain the way they are accustomed. The tiny diplomatic community, the retiring nature of the Marshallese, the small number of foreigners, and the lack of social events, public or private, are all factors that at times emphasize the sense of isolation in Majuro. Be creative, entertain yourself, and be willing to meet others. Bring mail-order sources for all your hobbies, reading, and audio needs. Majuro is a casual town, where people know one another and first names are used immediately. Marshallese custom places no importance on punctuality. The concepts of planning and preparation are unfamiliar. Country profile. Geography and climate. The Marshall Islands are located in the eastern part of the geographic region known as Micronesia, or Little Islands, a myriad of more than 2,100 coral atolls and volcanic islands scattered across 3 million square miles of the western Pacific Ocean. The Marshall Islands lie between latitude 414 degrees N and longitude 160-173 degrees E. The 29 coral atolls and 5 single islands of the Marshall Islands form 2 parallel groups extending northwest and southeast. The Raytok, Sunrise, Chain and Raleigh, Sunset, Chain. Total land area of all of the Marshall Islands is 70 square miles. Marine resources are abundant, but poor soil provides little opportunity for agriculture, except for the harvesting and drying of coconut meat into copra, the only revenue opportunity for outer islanders. Each atoll is a cluster of small, low-lying islands, none more than a few meters above sea level, circling a lagoon. The development of a coral atoll begins with coral growth around the edge of a high, often volcanic mountain. Growth continues as the mountain slowly sinks beneath the sea, leaving behind a circular reef that grows into small islands, islets, and open reef surrounding a lagoon. Most atolls have free-flowing water across most of the reef, with 1 or 2 openings for boats to enter the lagoon. The islands of most atolls are not contiguous, with stretches of open reef extending for miles between islands. As the distances between islands in an atoll can be many miles, travel from island to island within an atoll can be difficult. The capital of the Marshall Islands is Majuro, which lies 2,300 miles southwest of Honolulu and nearly 2,000 miles southeast of Guam. Majuro lies west of the International Dateline, making it 17 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time. Linking the islands of the southern side of Majuro Atoll runs the longest paved road in Micronesia, the islands having been artificially joined over the years by a 32-mile continuous road. The climate of the Marshall Islands is tropical, with high humidity, and an average year-round temperature of 81 degrees Fahrenheit. Trade winds pick up in October or November and blow strongly from January through April, with winds varying from 12 to 22 knots. The trades, often bringing overcast skies, have a cooling effect, although the lagoon can become rough, compared to the placid days of glassy water, so frequent in summer. Typhoon, tropical hurricane, season is from December through March. Tropical depressions form in the Marshall Islands and increase to typhoon strength as they move further west with the prevailing trade winds, making the Marshall Islands less susceptible to a full-strength typhoon than most islands in the Pacific. In Majuro, January, February, and March are traditionally the driest months, with rainfall averaging 6–8 inches a month. September through December are the wettest months, with 12–14 inches of average monthly rainfall. The temperature remains stable year-round, averaging 84 degrees Fahrenheit in the day and 76 degrees Fahrenheit at night. The Marshall Islands enjoy clean air, clear ocean water, sunshine, and adequate amounts of rainfall, with the exception of the heavily populated areas of Majuro and Dubai, where city living has taken its toll on the environment. Water shortages occur at any time when rainfall has been below normal, but in Majuro, shortages will occur most toward the end of the dry season in March. The use of water catchment devices is being promoted throughout the Marshall Islands. The outer islands rely more on a subsistence economy, occasionally experiencing food shortages due to seasonal variations. Population. An ethnically homogeneous population of Marshallese populates the Marshall Islands, whose origins, as determined through research of the language, appear to be in the Malayo-Indonesian area. The population shares a single language and culture, with some dialect and subcultural differences between the two island chains. The total population of the Marshall Islands as of the 1999 census was 50,840 people. That was an increase of 7,460 people since the 1988 census. Majuro and Dubai are the two urban population centers. Over 50% of Marshallese live on Majuro Atoll. Out of the total population, 19% live in the island of Dubai in Kwajalein Atoll and 3% on the outer islands of Kwajalein Atoll. With just 0.14 square miles, Dubai Island is the most densely populated area in the Marshall Islands, with an equivalent population density of 66,750 persons per square mile. The city of Majuro and Dubai offer amenities, such as electricity, modern Western lifestyles, and employment opportunities, albeit limited, that continually draw younger Marshallese from the outer islands. On the outer atolls the lifestyle is mostly unchanged and untouched by modern development. Fewer than 3% of the population are foreigners. Countries other than the U.S. are beginning to send diplomatic representatives to the Marshall Islands. Taiwan and Japan have embassies in Majuro. The Marshall Islands is a young population, where 43% of the population is under 15 years of age and 15% is under 5. The working age group of 15 to 65 years old is 55% of the population. The population has doubled in the last 26 years. With limited land and economic opportunities, controlling population growth has become a major goal of government authorities. The urban areas of the Marshall Islands, where lifestyles move away from the traditional culture, are experiencing increasingly severe problems with youth suicide, alcoholism, sexually transmitted diseases, juvenile delinquency, and disregard of parental influence. The social structure in the Marshall Islands is based on membership in a wedge, a system of extended families or small clans. All members of the wedge work together for the common good, sharing food, housing, property, and resources. The leader of a wedge is the lup, who acts as manager. Each wedge forms part of a larger group, led by an outrigger, or chief. It is traditionally the chief's responsibility to allocate resources among all his people and to resolve disputes. Land is a scarce resource in the Marshall Islands and forms an important base for the establishment of social structure. Marshallese own all land, none may be sold to foreigners, although it may be leased to foreigners if all those holding an interest in the land agree. Ownership of land defines social status and family identity. Land rights are inherited through membership in a wedge, which is determined through the female line. Inheritance of titles is also matrilineal. The traditional Marshallese method of dividing property, crops or catch, and income is 1/3 for the outrigger, 1/3 for the lup, and 1/3 for the dirigible, or common people who make up the wedge. This customary method of allocation is now creating social, economic, and legal difficulties within Marshallese society, as the country becomes increasingly westernized and moves from a subsistence economy to a money economy. Major disputes arise over outrigger titles as they command not only great prestige, but, with the advent of U.S. aid and lease payments, great wealth as well. The Marshallese have a relaxed and casual attitude to life and informal dress is normal. Marshallese have strong family relationships, and thus, family needs and desires take precedence over non-family matters. Most Marshallese can expect family or extended family support at any time. This social network allows relatives from the outer islands, whether invited or not, to join family members in Ebi or Majuro, and be assured of a home and food, even if the newcomer does not plan to work or make a contribution to the host family. Many young people prefer the U.S.-influenced lifestyles of Majuro and Ebi to the remote and quiet living of an outer island. As the population density of both centers increases, there are no indications that this trend will change in the future. There are no statistics to document how many Marshallese are actually living in the U.S. But many do, and more leave for the U.S. every day. Because of the relationship between the U.S. and the RMI, Marshallese are allowed to live and work in the U.S. at will. Public institutions. The Marshall Islands were claimed by Spain in 1592, but were left undisturbed by the Spanish Empire for 300 years. In 1885, Germany took over the administration of the Marshall Islands and located trading stations on the islands of Jaluit and Evan to pursue the flourishing copra, dried coconut meat, trade. Marshallese high chiefs continued to rule under indirect colonial German administration. At the beginning of World War I, Japan assumed control of the Marshall Islands, first under civil and later naval administration. Their headquarters remained on Jaluit. In early 1944, U.S. Marines and Army troops with naval air support took control from the Japanese following intense fighting on Kwajalein and Anatak atolls. In 1947, the U.S. as the occupying power entered into an agreement with the UN Security Council to administer the Micronesia area as the Strategic Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands. The area included what is now the Marshall Islands, the Federated States of Micronesia, the Republic of Palau, and the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas. During the lengthy negotiations leading to the present political entities, the various peoples voted to pursue their separate courses rather than join as one country. On May 1, 1979, the U.S. extended recognition both to the Constitution of the Marshall Islands, a document that incorporates both American and British constitutional concepts, and to the establishment of the government of the Marshall Islands. After 13 years of negotiation, on June 25, 1983, the government of the Marshall Islands and the government of the U.S. signed the Compact of Free Association. The people of the Marshall Islands approved the compact and the U.S. observed plebiscite on September 7, 1983. The U.S. Congress subsequently reviewed the compact and included several amendments that were accepted by the government of the Marshall Islands. President Reagan signed the compact into law on January 14, 1986. The compact entered into force in the Marshall Islands on October 21, 1986. The UN voted to terminate the trusteeship with respect to the Marshall Islands and the Federated States of Micronesia in December 1990. The status of free association recognized the Republic of the Marshall Islands as a self-governing state with the capacity to conduct foreign affairs consistent with the terms of the compact. The compact places full responsibility for defense of the Marshall Islands with the U.S. The basic relationship of free association continues indefinitely, while the economic and defense provisions of the compact are subject to renegotiating at the end of 15 years. Congress provides most of the compact funding through the U.S. Department of the Interior. A major subsidiary agreement of the compact allows the U.S. continued use of the U.S. Army installation at Kwajalein, an atoll consisting of 90 islets around the largest lagoon in the world. The U.S. Department of Defense, DoD, uses the facility on a lease agreement with the government of the Marshall Islands. DoD controls 11 islands within Kwajalein Atoll. Another major agreement of the compact provides for settlement of all claims arising out of the nuclear testing programs that the U.S. conducted at Bikini and Anatak atolls from 1946 to 1958. The legislative branch of the government is made up of the Nitijla Parliament, with an advisory council of outrigger high chiefs. The Nitaijla has 33 members from 25 districts that are elected for concurrent 4-year terms. Members of the Nitaijla hold the title of senator. The executive branch is under the leadership of the president, who is elected by the Nitaijla from among its membership. The president selects the other 10 members of his cabinet from the Nitaijla. The first president of the republic was elected in 1979. The Marshall Islands has 4 court systems: the Supreme Court, High Court, District, and Community Courts, and the Traditional Rights Court. Most trial cases are heard before a judge. Jury trial is used only in unusual circumstances because of the difficulty in finding unbiased jurors within such a small population. Jurisdiction of the Traditional Rights Court is limited to cases involving titles, land rights, or other disputes arising from customary law and traditional practices. The Council of Outrigger, representing traditional authority, advises the cabinet on matters concerning customary law, arts, science, and education. The Marshall Islands has 77 public elementary schools and 3 public secondary schools. There are 26 private elementary schools and 13 private secondary schools. 48 Head Start centers throughout the country provide preschool training. Head Start is available to 35% of the 3 to 5-year-olds in the Marshall Islands. In 1999, 84% of elementary school-age children and 69% of the secondary school-age children attended classes. Test scores reveal that the education system needs to be improved. Though there is a 19-to-1 ratio of students to teachers, the quality of education is of great concern. Nearly half of the teachers in the Marshall Islands have only a secondary school diploma as their highest qualification. Scores on the entrance tests to the College of the Marshall Islands, CMI, in February 2000 required 73% of those applying to take remedial training of up to 2 years before being allowed to enroll in traditional college credit courses. CMI provides 2-year degree programs in liberal arts and sciences, teacher education, nursing and allied health, business and computer science, and vocational and occupational education and training. Remedial programs are available to prepare students to enter CMI's degree programs, and it has an adult education program to provide an opportunity for obtaining a high school diploma. CMI is in partnership in the Workforce Investment Act, WIA, which is U.S. federally funded. The University of the South Pacific, USP, provides post-secondary education through extension programs in Majuro. Students are able to complete full majors and degrees without having to attend classes on USP campuses. USP provides training in conjunction with a U.S. federally funded Head Start program for preschool certificate and a diploma in early childhood education and community nutrition. The Marshall Islands women are respected throughout Micronesia for the quality of the woven handicrafts they produce from coconut and pandanus fibers. Intricate and delicate baskets are decorated with many small shells, fans, mats, belts, handbags, and hats are woven to be decorative as well as practical. Most of the weaving is done by women on the outer islands who ship their goods to Majuro for sale at local handicraft stores. Men carve and assemble small replicas of the wooden sailing canoes that were once the only means of travel in the Marshall Islands. They also make modern stick charts, illustrating the principles of wave shape and change, which were used by Marshallese navigators to travel throughout the island chains. The Marshallese have an oral tradition of song and legend, which is closely held and not shared with foreigners. With the increasing move toward a Western society, many fear that much of this tradition will soon be lost. The Ale Museum is a private, non-profit corporation that operates a small museum with photos and objects of traditional Marshallese culture and history. It has an extensive microfilm inventory of documents relating to the history of the Marshall Islands and the Trust Territories. It actively encourages preservation and documentation of the Marshallese cultural heritage. A Marshallese festival occasion always includes a song or two, sung by men and women in harmony, sometimes a cappella, sometimes with a ukulele. As individuals, the Marshallese people are quiet and somewhat reticent, but they will spontaneously form a group and give an enthusiastic vocal performance at almost any event. The Jepta dancing performed by groups of youth and adults at their respective churches highlights the Christmas celebration. A month of late-night practices culminates in Christmas night dancing, each group in their own costume, performing variations of traditional dances. Commerce and industry. The government is the largest employer in the country, employing about 1/4 of the workforce. The gross domestic product is derived mainly from U.S.-funded expenditures. Direct U.S. aid under the Compact of Free Association accounted for 2/3 of the Marshall Islands' 2000 budget of U.S. $100 million. Per capita gross domestic product during 1999 was about U.S. $1,500, a figure that to understand the standard of living. The economy is a mixture of a small subsistence sector and a modern urban sector. The modern sector is largely a service-oriented economy located in Majuro and Dubai, sustained by expenditure of the Marshall Islands government and the U.S. Army installation at Kwajalein Atoll, Usaka. Wages, salaries, and other benefits to employees from these two sectors accounted for more than half of the gross domestic product in 1999. The modern private sector consists of wholesale and retail trade, restaurants, banking and insurance, construction and repair services, professional services, and a small amount of copper processing. Despite its small size, however, copper cake and copper oil are by far the largest exports, standing at US $1 million in 1999. The Marshall Islands have 22,000 acres of coconut plantations, and copper production has been the most important single commercial economic activity for the past 100 years. Unfortunately, the world market for coconut oil is currently in decline and diminishes the value of the Marshall Islands' largest export commodity. The minimum wage is US $2 an hour, which places the Marshall Islands at a competitive disadvantage vis-à-vis its potential Pacific and East Asian competitors. Skilled workers are few. The US dollar is the official currency. Outer Islanders in an otherwise subsistence economy make copra and weave handicrafts as their sole source of income. These limited revenues fund what few items they can afford, such as soap, lantern fuel, and clothing. Most imports are consumed on Majuro and Dubai. Agriculture, marine resources, and tourism are top government development priorities. The Marshall Islands has no large-scale fishing operations. Sale of fishing rights to the Japanese, Taiwanese, and Koreans is a source of income, and the Marshall Islands is the recipient of aid, particularly from Japan to ensure the continuation of these rights. The U.S. and Japan are the Marshall Islands' major trading partners. Retail trade with Australia and New Zealand is increasing. The Marshall Islands receives additional aid from the government of Australia. Transportation. Automobiles. Majuro enjoys the longest paved road system in all of Micronesia, from Rita, at the eastern end of Majuro Atoll, to Laura, the village on the far western end, a distance of about 30 miles. The island is so narrow that when driving the length of the island there are very few places where you are unable to see the lagoon and ocean at the same time. There are no street names and no addresses. As is typical in small towns all over the world, locations are identified by their occupant, their former occupant, or the nearest landmark. There are very few traffic signs, and there are no stoplights. Local police are working hard to enforce good driving habits, but almost anyone who pays the fee required can acquire a driver's license. Drivers must be extra cautious as children and animals dart into the street day and night. There are no sidewalks, so the narrow roads are shared with pedestrians, and one must be alert as people and cars seem to come out of nowhere. Because there are so many vehicles, traffic is becoming a problem, especially in the mornings, at noon, and at 5 o'clock. The speed limit in most areas is 25 miles per hour, but at times it's impossible to maintain even that rate of speed. Gasoline costs about twice as much as in the U.S. Taxis are the main means of transportation for the Marshallese people. A person can ride in one direction anywhere from the end of Rita to the bridge, approximately 7 miles, for 50 cents. If a person were to travel from Rita to Long Island, at the other side of the bridge, the charge would be $1.50. it becomes more costly to travel from town to the airport and beyond. Taxis are not always convenient, especially on Long Island. At night it is very difficult and possibly dangerous to get a taxi into town from Long Island. What makes it dangerous is that there are few streetlights and people waiting on the side of the road to hail a taxi are not clearly visible. Drunk drivers are more likely to be driving at night, so standing by the side of the narrow roads after dark is not a good idea. When using the taxi service, you must share the car with as many people as the driver chooses to pick up. That means that there are many stops made from when one gets in to the final destination. The convenience of having a personal car is immeasurable. Buying a new car locally is a possibility. Buying a used car in Majuro, as in the U.S., can be a gamble. It is a requirement of the Marshall Islands that vehicles be licensed. The weight of the vehicle determines the charge, but for the average car, the fee is $35. Law requires that vehicles be inspected yearly. Inspection stickers are issued when the car is licensed, although this law is not strictly enforced. The licensing fee includes the fee for the inspection sticker. Liability insurance is required and must be obtained before the vehicle is licensed. The cost for minimum coverage locally is less than US $200. Persons planning to drive in Majuro should have a current Marshall Islands driver's license. This driver's license will be issued for $20. No test is required, but you will probably be asked to present your U.S. driver's license when applying. Local. Those who don't have their own vehicles move about town using the local taxi service. Individuals can license cars or vans of all descriptions as taxis. Taxis cruise the road picking up passengers who hail them from the roadside. Riders are picked up until the car is full and then dropped at their various destinations. The fare schedule is simple, with downtown transfers costing 50 cents and longer rides costing $1.50. Students and children pay only 25 cents, but, as a result, may be ignored as they wait for a ride. The ride may be hot and the car rickety and you may have to wait for a taxi to drive by, but the operators are honest, and the service proves to be convenient. To find a nice public sandy beach where you can spend a day swimming and snorkeling, you must drive to Laura. The road is paved and the drive is a pleasant one. It can take as much as an hour to drive the approximately 20 miles, but there is much to see along the way, as the scenery is beautiful. Laura is a small village, different from downtown Majuro, with more land and fewer inhabitants. Chartered boat trips can be arranged and are a wonderful way to get away from the city. Just a few islands up the reef from Majuro you will find islands that are almost completely uninhabited. Perfectly clear warm water and beautiful sandy beaches are there to explore. Most island inhabitants welcome guests, but you must ask first. Travel to the other atolls in the Marshall Islands is by boat or plane. Air Marshall Islands, AMI, provides service to the 26 grass airstrips located on various other atolls. Travel within an atoll is by small, outboard boats, as the islands on an atoll are connected only by long sections of open reef. Arno, 12 miles away and the atoll closest to Majuro, is the only outer island accessible from Majuro by small boat in a single day. Because of the travel impediments and lack of any guest facilities, the most frequent foreign visitors to the outer islands are those on occasional sailboats passing through on cruises of the Pacific. Regional. Both the Majuro and Kwajalein atolls have airports that accommodate large jet aircraft. Continental Micronesia provides jet service between Honolulu and Guam, via Majuro and Kwajalein. Aloha Airlines provides service between Honolulu and Kwajalein via Majuro. Majuro has excellent shipping links to the west coast of the U.S., Hawaii, Australia, Japan, the South Pacific, and to other parts of Micronesia. Regular shipping service is provided by PM&O Lines, Matson Navigation Company, NEC, and Forum Lines. Tiger Lines and Saipan Shipping provide transshipment facilities out of Ganam and Saipan. The ports in Majuro and Tabai provide containerized cargo handling, warehousing, and transshipment operations. Communications. The Marshall Islands National Telecommunications Authority, NEA, provides telecommunications services for the Marshall Islands. NTA provides access to domestic and international telephone service, local cellular telephone service, and internet services. Residential, one-party line charges $12 per month with a one-time $35 connection fee. As in the U.S., you can subscribe to enhanced services such as caller ID, call waiting, etc. Charges for these enhanced services are nominal. Mobile cellular telephone service is $25 a month with a one-time $35 service connection. Users may avail of 60 free minutes of airtime allowed per month, not including long-distance time, and 10 cents per minute airtime charge after the first 60 minutes. Cellular phones are usually available for purchase on the island. Internet service is costly compared to the U.S. NTA charges $40 a month plus $3 an hour of use. There is an initial $15 installation fee. Mail. The Marshall Islands is a U.S. domestic mail zone and receives international mail service through the U.S. Postal Service. Because of the close ties with the U.S. system, Majuro has been assigned a two-digit state abbreviation which is MH. The zip code for Majuro is 96,960. U.S. domestic rates apply to and from the U.S. Although the Marshall Islands issues its own stamps, the postal system in Majuro has accepted U.S. postage stamps on single pieces mailed to the U.S. First-class letter mail arrives by air 610 days from the East Coast. Packages sent priority mail also arrive about the same time, or slightly longer. Non-first-class mail, including parcel post and magazines sent second class, arrive by ship within 2 to 4 months. In Majuro, mail is delivered only to a post office box. Outer island mail requires a first-class stamp. Parcels are charged as freight and delivered by local plane or ship. Radio and TV. The Marshall Islands has 2 radio stations. V7AB, AM 1098, is run by the Ministry of Interior and Outer Islands Affairs, broadcasting news, announcements, the Nitijla meetings when the Nitijla is in session, and popular and Marshallese music. Some news and announcements are in both Marshallese and English. WSCF, FM 104, is run by the Baptist Church and broadcasts religious music and programs. Real-time news can be heard on the hour on FM 104 from the BBC, however, the reception for the BBC is poor. Cable TV is available in Majuro through Marshall's Broadcasting Company. Initial installation is $30 with a monthly charge of $29.99 for one TV and $10 a month extra for each additional TV that is hooked up. For an additional $10 a month, the Philippine station can be accessed. There are about 11 stations in all. Real-time news can be received on CNN, CNBC and BBC. At this time, almost everything seen here is shown approximately 2 weeks after its U.S. showing. A TV schedule is not published, but many shows are broadcast with some regularity, so one is able to predict when some shows will be aired. Movies are shown both day and night, and most are suitable for all audiences. There are many video stores on the island and the selections available are quite good. Newspaper, magazines, and technical journals. The Marshall Islands Journal is an independently published weekly newspaper and is the only printed source of local news. It is issued every Thursday at a cost of 50 cents and provides coverage of local events in both Marshallese and English. A few magazines and paperback books are available at local stores, but the selection is poor, usually out of date, and the price is high. The Majuro Public Library located in the Ale Museum building is small and limited. The College of the Marshall Islands makes its library available to anyone who would want to use it. Health and medicine. Medical facilities. Medical care in Majuro is not up to U.S. standards. The Majuro Hospital is staffed with doctors from many countries around the Pacific. There are no American doctors at this time at the Majuro Hospital. There is one private clinic operated by a doctor from the Philippines. The 177 clinic is the medical facility serving those affected by the nuclear testing. At present, there is a doctor from the U.S. manning this facility. Although the 177 clinic is there to serve this exclusive group of people, if scheduling permits you may be able to request an appointment with this doctor. The Youth to Youth in Health has a clinic in Majuro catering to the young community. Obtaining medicine is often a problem. Many times the hospital is not able to stock an adequate supply, so they are frequently out of some of the most basic medicines. You cannot depend on being able to have a prescription filled here, so bring regularly needed medications with you or make arrangements to have them sent from the U.S. Routine laboratory work is available. More complicated tests are sent to Honolulu for evaluation. Dental care is available for simple dental work, checkups, cleaning, and X-ray, but again, not up to U.S. standards. Majuro has no facilities for optical care. Bring spare eyeglasses and sunglasses. Selections of contact lens solutions are limited. Try to bring with you any medicine or medical supplies you anticipate needing on a regular basis. Simple things like bandages and antibiotic cream, aspirin, Motrine, Tylenol and cold medicines are usually obtainable from the two largest stores on the island. You cannot always count on finding your favorite brands, so it would be a good idea to bring a small supply of your favorites to use until you find out if they are available here. Community health. Ebi Island in Kwajalein Atoll, the second largest population center in the Marshall Islands, has an expanding health center for its large population. All other outer island communities are served by 64 health centers staffed with modestly trained health assistants who utilize small dispensaries and are connected by marine high-frequency radio to the main center in Majuro. Boats or planes evacuate medical emergencies from the outer islands to Majuro. In Majuro there is also a church-based health clinic in Laura, a non-government-operated clinic run by the Baptist Church and one run by Mission Pacific. Common infectious and communicable diseases in the Marshall Islands include amoebiasis, conjunctivitis, diarrhea, gastroenteritis, gonorrhea, influenza, leprosy, scabies, syphilis, and tuberculosis. Water supply, sanitation, personal hygiene and overcrowding are among factors related to the infectious and communicable diseases. Tests for HIV/AIDS in 1997 to 1999 found no positive cases. However, tests in 1996 detected one positive HIV case. With the increasing level of prostitution and the large number of foreign fishing boats calling at Majuro, the risk of HIV and AIDS being introduced to this area becomes more of a possibility each day. The most relevant non-communicable disease in the Marshall Islands is diabetes, which is now a major health problem. Hypertension and heart disease are also on the increase. Poor eating habits, the consumption of large amounts of alcohol and tobacco, and the lack of exercise contribute heavily to these major health problems. Preventive measures. All should follow standard State Department immunization guidelines, including inoculation for hepatitis A and B. Sunburn is a problem year-round. Everyone is urged to use sunscreen and wear sunglasses and protective clothing. Coral cuts are a common occurrence and no matter how small are slow to heal and susceptible to infection. Wounds should be cleaned, treated with antibiotic cream and kept bandaged until completely healed. Prevent cuts to feet by wearing shoes while in the water and out. Everyone is urged to drink plenty of fluid in order to stay hydrated. Eating in major restaurants is safe. Be careful when eating at private or public events, because food is commonly not refrigerated properly and could be prepared in less than sanitary conditions. Most meats, fruits and vegetables are imported from the US, Australia and New Zealand and are safe. Local vegetables, pork, chicken and fish are also safe. Some reef fish contain toxins, and the varieties that are safe to eat vary from atoll to atoll. If you catch your own fish, check with the local fishermen to see if it is safe to eat. When purchasing products at any store, be sure to check the expiration dates on the packages, as it is common to find many that are still on the shelf long beyond their shelf life. The normal tropical rodents and small lizards are present, but not in excess. Cockroaches and ants can become a problem. Flies and a few mosquitoes are a nuisance, but often the trade winds keep them away. The Majuro Water and Sewer Company, which is government-owned, provides the water and sewer system in Majuro. The public water system relies primarily on a rainwater catchment system, which is located at the airport runway and in the wells in Laura. Public water is normally available 3 days a week for 14 hours per day. Individual homes must have their own catchment and storage tanks to provide round-the-clock water. A 1999 census reported that 61% of all households in the Marshall Islands used flush toilets and 25% used pit latrines or no toilet facilities at all. A great part of the population continues traditional customs, using the ocean and lagoon reefs for elimination and personal hygiene, contributing significantly to local pollution. Public garbage collection exists, but unfortunately, vast amounts of the trash are dumped oceanside or lagoonside by residents, creating, among other problems, unsightly pollution in many areas. Notes for travelers. Passage, customs, and duties. Travel to Majuro is via jet from Honolulu or Guam. Continental Micronesia arrives in Majuro from Honolulu on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. From Majuro the plane goes on to Kwajalein and then Guam with stops in Causeway, Pohnpei, and Chunk. The plane returns to Honolulu from Guam on Monday, Wednesday and Friday with stops in Kwajalein and Majuro. Aloha Airlines flies from Honolulu to Majuro, arriving in Majuro on Friday evenings. Aloha then flies on to Kwajalein and returns through Majuro on Saturday morning back to Honolulu. Unaccompanied baggage takes about 3-4 weeks by air from the U.S. during peak passenger seasons. Lack of freight space on incoming flights can cause delays. Surface shipments arrive in 2-3 months from the East Coast. Shipments are through Los Angeles or Honolulu from points east of the Marshall Islands. West of the Marshall Islands there are also good connections, with vessels coming from Guam, Manila, and Hong Kong. Visas are not required for U.S. citizens. A valid passport, sufficient funds for a stay, and an onward/return ticket are required for stays up to 30 days, and may be extended for up to 90 days from the date of entry. A departure fee is required. A health certificate is required if arriving from infected areas. An AIDS test may be required for visits over 30 days. U.S. tests are accepted. For further information on entry requirements for the Marshall Islands, please contact the Embassy of the Republic of the Marshall Islands, 2433 Massachusetts Avenue, North. W, Washington, D.C., 20008. The telephone number is 202-234-5414. Also, please see the homepage for the Embassy of the Marshall Islands at www.mamembasies.org. Americans living in or visiting the Marshall Islands are encouraged to register at the consular section of the U.S. Embassy in Majuro. The U.S. Embassy does not have a street address in Majuro. The embassy is located on the ocean side of the island's road, near the Church of the Latter-day Saints and Gibson's Express, Long Island. The U.S. Embassy's mailing address is P.O. Box 1379, Majuro, Marshall Islands 969601379. The telephone number is 692-247-4011. The fax number is 692-247-4012. The U.S. Embassy homepage on the Internet is www.usembassy.state.gov web link. Pets. Importation of dogs and cats is allowed. However, there is a quarantine period for a minimum of 120 days. Animals are also required to have a health and rabies certificate, both for transiting Honolulu and to enter the Marshall Islands. Rabies is not present in RMI. Therefore, strict regulations must be followed. If pets are being sent unaccompanied, all airlines are obliged to deliver arriving dogs and cats to the airport animal quarantine holding facility until their onward flight to the Marshall Islands. However, if the flight delay is over 24 hours, approximately, the pets will be transported to the animal quarantine branch facility in Aiea, Hawaii, where they will remain until their scheduled flight. If the animal must be transported to the Aiea facility, there will be charges for this service to include a $35 registration fee per animal. Additionally, one cannot pay by credit card or cash, A certified check must be sent to the facility prior to any boarding arrangements. If your pets will be detained in Hawaii, it is best to call the Animal Quarantine Branch for details. Telephone, 808-483-7145, fax, 808-4,837,161. The Marshall Islands have no kennels or veterinary services, so one must be prepared for any illnesses that their pets may come down with. The following requirements must be followed in importing pets into the country. A permit must be obtained from the Department of Agriculture Quarantine Section, which costs $10. The permit is valid for one shipment only. A copy must accompany the shipment and be surrendered to a quarantine officer on duty upon arrival of shipment into the RMI. The importation of animals into the RMI requires presentation of an International Animal Health Certificate, attesting that the animals were examined within 48 hours of shipment, found to be in good health, and showed no sign of any infectious disease. B. Have been effectively vaccinated against distemper, hepatitis, and canine parvovirus at least 1 month and not more than 3 months before shipment. C. Have been effectively treated against echinococcus, round, hook, and whipworms within 3 days of shipment. D. Have been effectively treated against, and found on examination to be visibly free of, ectoparasites within 3 days of shipment. E. Showed no clinical sign of rabies on the day of shipment, and were kept from birth or for 6 months prior to shipment in the exporting country where no case of rabies was officially reported during the 2 years immediately preceding the importation of the animals concerned. F. Have been vaccinated with an inactivated rabies virus more than 30 days prior to entry into the RMI, and G. For animals originating from a country where rabies occurs or is reported to occur or where rabies vaccination is routinely practiced. Such animals must be confined for a period of not less than 120 days in an approved quarantine facility in a rabies-free area prior to entry to the RMI, or H, should meet the requirements of the state of Hawaii or the territory of Guam. Upon arrival in the RMI, imported animals shall immediately be taken under the control of a quarantine officer to the quarantine premises previously approved by the Chief of Agriculture, where the animals shall remain until they are released by a quarantine officer. Animals imported not in compliance with the permit requirements may be re-exported or destroyed upon arrival. The quarantine section of the Department of Agriculture can be contacted through the following: telephone, 692-625-3206, fax, 692-625-3821, email, dadmatt@thamar.com. Firearms and ammunition. Importation of firearms is officially prohibited. No opportunities for recreational firearm use exist in the Marshall Islands. Currency, banking, and weights and measures. The US dollar is the official currency of the Marshall Islands. Credit cards are accepted at a few establishments. Traveler's checks are acceptable, but ask before making purchases. Non-diplomatic passengers pay a US $20 departure tax at the airport.